The Cascade Union is Sydney N-Scale's major layout. It occupies 2 rooms in the club's premises and has been under construction for 5 years. In December 2023, after 4 years of construction, the layout had 2 levels of the triple level design built, with all track work, mainline track work, in both rooms completed, and most of the scenery on the lower level completed. And here in the upper level, in the south room, some scenery had been applied, but was still basically bare boards. By December 2024, very little appears to be changed in respect to the layout in the south room, apart from the fact that all the scenery has now been completed and all the track has been laid. Not just the main line, but all the yard tracks. In the north room, it's a different story. We can see both levels there, and the mainline trackage has been laid, but the scenery is only on the lower level. There's no scenery on the upper level, and it is in this area, the north room, where most of our construction effort was applied during 2024. Whilst I had said there was no scenery on the upper level, as you can see here, we have applied a bit of scenery, but it's only a small portion of the middle level that has been roughly scenic. By December 2024, the story is very different. You can see scenery all the way on both levels, and this area that you see, the mainline station, didn't exist in 2023, nor did this freight yard. We've still got to complete the scenery on this level, but it's getting there. And all the other scenery on the middle level has been completed. In addition, work has already started on the next level up. And as you can see from this little arrow, there's track sticking out, which is the end of the helix from the middle level to the new top level. Now let's look at some of the individual sections of the layout, the areas where we did most of the construction during 2024. The first section to look at is Feltonville. This is in the north room, and at the end of December 2023, the track on this section had been laid, but that was as far as it had got. In February, a lot of the basic scenery had been applied, And in March, even more was done. And by June of 2024, the scenery in Feltonville was completed. The next section to look at is Kerr's Plains. This is in the South Room, and Kerr's Plains is the terminus of our major branch. In December 2023, all that was consisting in here was bare boards with some track laid out just to give an idea of how the layout was going to look. During January and February of 24, the track was all laid. And then in March, by March, some of the initial scenery had been applied, mainly the area connecting the main line with the actual branch. And then by June 24, we can see a lot more of the scenery completed. Track is still unballasted. It's a bit hard to see sometimes when you're looking at this scene, but the track is still yet to be ballasted. By August 2024, the yard was finally completed. All track ballasted, all scenery done, all operational. The next section to look at is Spokane Yard. In December 23, the baseboards for this yard didn't even exist. And yet by March, all the track had been laid. Quite a lot of track to be laid in this yard. And it was a major effort to get it all laid and tested. You can see all the cars sitting there were used to make sure that everything ran smoothly over the yard. Then in April, we pulled the boards off the layout and spent April and May wiring it all up. By August, all the wiring had been completed, the boards had been replaced back into place, tested again, and all the point wiring had been joined up to some panels. Just see it briefly there, the panel, so that the yard was now fully operational. At the end of August, we had an official opening, and it's now called Aiden Yard. And then in September, some early test scenery was added, and in November we were starting to get some of the scenery around. The throat scenery was starting to be added, and in December the engine facility was being constructed. We now move back to Calgary on the lower level. This was just to be a fiddle yard, but it was decided we needed some scenery on it. So during June and July, we added that scenery. We now move on to the Spokane Union Station. Again, in December, there was nothing here. But by March, the baseboards were in, the track had been laid out for measuring, but progress was slow. By August, most of the track had been put into place, and in September, all had been completed. So in October, we did as we did with the Aden Yard. We took the baseboards off, wired it up, and then put it back into place. We also started constructing the bridges which were needed to fly over the main line and feed into the yard. So by November, like Aden Yard, the throat had been put together, the bridges feeding into the throat completed, and the scenery around that area had been completed. And finally in December, lights. We now move on to that unsung area, the electricals. We built panels under the layout to hold all of the power. The command station and the computer interfaces were put into place. Under various sections of the layout, panels were built which would drop down to allow people to access and update the commands. And on the middle level, series of point switches were added to allow us to operate the yards. If you've liked the video, please click on the like button. And if you haven't subscribed, we'd love to have you along, so please hit on the subscribe button.